Hi and welcome back to the Witching Hour Audio YouTube channel. My name's Sean, thanks for joining me again today. I wanted to create a short video that covers some of the basic controls that you'll find in most synthesizer instruments or plugins. This idea came about because recently I had the opportunity to create the soundtrack for a short film, and I found that I was drawing upon a lot of my rudimentary knowledge of how synthesizers work while tweaking and creating the sounds that the project needed. I come from a much more guitar-oriented background when creating music, so for me the world of synthesizers was quite daunting at first. There's quite a lot of controls and things that you can change, so I thought this might help people who, like me, don't do much synth-based work. It's going to be a little bit more basics focused, so if you're someone that uses synths all the time, this may be a little rudimentary for your knowledge level. But for me, who has mostly created metal music and then gone on to work on a little bit of post-production for the songs later on, this might be useful for anyone coming from that position. I find that when I'm trying to imagine a sound in my head, a really great way of getting there quickly is, of course, to go through your preset banks and find something that has a character that you're looking for. But I do find invariably that there's always something that's not quite right with the patches that I go through, even if it's close. So just being able to understand how to open those presets and then tweak the parameters to match what you really want so that it feels just right is just a useful skill to have if you're going to be working with synthesizers at all. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at Cubase's Retrolog, which I especially like for this purpose because it has a pretty logical layout and it will allow us to look at the basics pretty easily. As you open it up, there's quite a bit to look at all at once, but we might break it down section by section. And as I mentioned earlier, we're not going to go super deep. It's just going to give a more basic understanding of the universal controls. Now, all synthesizers will have some form of oscillator. The oscillator is what makes the movement to create your sound initially. And if you're building a sound from scratch, this is a really good starting point. So when we first play the sound that we have at default, it's pretty nasty and horrible. And it's currently set to the sawtooth wave. Now we have up to 3 oscillators here, as well as a subtrack, and we can add additional noise. And all of those oscillators and those controls can be mixed to different volumes there. So at the moment, only oscillator 1 selected in a sawtooth wave. You can experiment with these, but we're not going to spend too long on it. I'll quickly take us through to the sine wave, which is smooth. Triangular wave, which is a little more distorted sounding. Sawtooth wave, which is our original quite nasty one. And I forget the name of this one, might be some kind of crossover. Yeah, I'm not sure, sorry. But as we change the shape parameter, this one sounds quite unique. And then along here, I'll switch it back to sine for the minute. Along here, we can control what octave it plays at. So you can have it playing at sort of a mid-level, much higher, or much lower for a sub-frequency. I might put that back somewhere here. And now I'm going to add a second oscillator. And with this one, we're going to switch it to a triangular wave and maybe an octave below. And just hear how they sound together. You can see currently we've got oscillator 1 and 2 mixed at maximum level. So I'm going to turn our second one down and then introduce it. And you can hear how they work in combination. We'll add our third oscillator, and this one I might make a bit of a nastier sawtooth wave, and we'll let this one be quite high and piercing. These coarse and fine let you tune the notes that are played. So sometimes you might want one of your alternators to be detuned or tuned a little higher to fight with the original note, creating a bit of a strange tension to your sound. So let's introduce this third one. It should be quite piercing, but we'll mix it in slowly. Alright, so that sounds pretty dreadful, but it shows you how they mix together. We've also got access to a subtrack down here, which has its wave, different types of waves that can be selected. And we can also introduce some noise. I like pink noise normally, it's a little bit smoother than white. And we can introduce the amount of noise over here. So none of that's something you'd probably ever want in your track, but that's how those controls work. So we might turn off oscillator 2 and 3 and our sub and our noise. I've just got them all down, so we're back to our original smoother sine wave. And now what we're going to have a look at is move to this section here, which is called the filter section. Now what you can do is this will allow you to apply a filter. There's some additional controls around resonance, distortion, etc. But our filter basically allows our audio signal to go through a filter. It might want to cut off the low end, it might want to cut off the high end, and you can change it, how much it affects our track by using this cutoff frequency. At the moment, it's got what's called a low pass. I think it's 24 dB per octave, which is a particular shape of your low pass. So you'll hear as I pull down the cutoff, less and less of the high end is allowed to pass. So the low end is allowed to pass, and the high end is cut away. It's probably a little bit more noticeable as you do a more nasty sound. Sorry for everyone's ears, but we'll pull some of that resonance out now. And all these have different shapes. We have low pass, we have band pass, we have high pass and low pass together at a huge range of shapes. So they are fun to experiment with. And the other thing you can do in Cubase, and I'm sure most other DAWs, is if you right click it, you can get it to learn the command of your MIDI. So you could have a knob control the cutoff, for example, and you can do that with any of these controls, which is great. Our key follow allows that to take effect only as the pitch of the notes move up and down. We can introduce distortion using this knob here. So as I increase the distortion, you can change the type here as well. We've got tube selected, and you'll hear as I increase it, it will become distorted. And a resonance creates a resonant peak at a pitch, which can work quite nicely, and sometimes it can be a bit much. All right, so that's a little bit of an overview to the filter section. We might have a look at the amplifier section with our attack, decay, sustain, and release. Now this is probably the most important because, as I mentioned earlier, often you'll find a patch that you really like, but the character and the way it behaves isn't quite right. So essentially what these mean is your attack time is when you press your key, how long it takes to reach its peak. So if you have a slow attack time, it's going to be a quite immediate note. If you have a really long attack time, it's going to take a moment to build up, almost like a pad, so it'll sweep in. I'll just demonstrate that now. At the moment, that's 0 milliseconds attack time, so as soon as I press my key, the sound's immediately there. But as I increase this, this is going to take about 1300 milliseconds, and you'll hear it gradually come in. And you can really extend that out and have it quite drastic. And as you can hear with that, as soon as I let that key off, it disappears immediately. So the build-in's slow and the release is just dies instantly. So what I can do is increase my release time to let that note hang in the air a little longer. The release time basically is as you release the key, how long it takes to disappear back to 0. And you'll hear that come in and out in a much softer way. A little less clear are the decay time and sustain level. Basically, if we have our decay time set in, what happens is our initial note comes in, and then what happens is your decay time is that initial note will fall away, and then it will stay at the level of the sustain note. So if your decay time and your sustain level is set correctly, you'll hear the note come in for its attack, come down for its decay, and then sit at the sustain time, at the sustain level, as long as you're holding that note. And then you release that note, and the release time comes into effect. So let's see if this is audible. So that time there, we heard it have a sort of medium attack, and then it dropped down quite quickly for the decay, and then it sat at the sustain level and then had quite a slow release at the end. So I'll just do that again. All right, now if I increase my decay time, that dip of that initial sound will be slower. So I'm hoping that makes a little bit of sense. It took me a little bit of time to get my head around that. But if you have a sound preset that you like that's a little bit too immediate, well, then you can slow down the attack time. If you have something that is already a little too gradual, like a pad that doesn't come in sharply enough, well, then you'll lower your attack time. And so hopefully that makes a bit more sense. With this particular synthesizer, we have some low frequency oscillators, and what these do basically is have a bit of an up down sort of wave, and you can through this menu here attach them to any parameter through this. So you might want to have something that goes up and down in a sine wave, and you want that to work on your oscillation level of number 1. So you can, for example, get this LFO 1, and then you can have it modify the oscillator 1 level, and then that will, in the shape of a sine wave, so gradually and smooth, come up and down. But you will need to increase the depth from 0, because that's what our depth does. But I don't really want to go too far into that because it'll extend this video out a little too much. The other thing I wanted to mention, because it's quite cool, is in our voice section here, we can control our glide parameters. At the moment, it's set to mono, so only a single voice is coming out. And what I can do is turn on retrigger, which as we're releasing our fingers, it will retrigger a second note. But I'm also going to turn on our glide parameter, and we're going to turn up our glide time to exaggerate it. Now what's going to happen is as I hold 2 different notes, have a listen. It glides from one note to the next in a smooth sort of way. But what happens in this mode is it sounds like another key is being triggered. What we're going to do is switch that to legato mode, and it gives us a very strange smooth effect. That's a bit of an interesting thing to play with as well. So we might turn all that off now and have a look also at a few other things that are common in a few different VSTs. So in our effects page here, we've got quite a lot of options. I won't go too far into this either, but you can create a chain of them and change the order. We've got our delay, which can be interesting. Reverb as well. And then our equalizer section where you can EQ it. But as I said, we'll leave most of that alone for the minute. Might leave the delay on and have a quick look at our arpeggiator menu here. This is quite powerful too. I hadn't used arpeggiators much at all in the past, but I had a bit of a play with them. They are quite a lot of fun and might be useful, especially if you're working on something with a bit more electronic styling. So I click main. What I will do here is drag a bunch of steps here. So now it's going to do, it's going to create a lot of notes at the same speed as our tempo here. So that's going to be obviously related to the tempo of your track. If I hold down a key, now I've got it on a 32 note loop, but you can shorten that and it will cycle through a lot quicker. So if we have only 8, and it cycles through. So what's going to happen now is if I hold down multiple notes on my keyboard, you'll see that down the bottom, it's going to step through them in order. So what it's going to do here is as I hold down multiple keys, if I change this from step into up, for example, or up down, it's going to, I'm going to do the keys of the C major scale here. So I'll hold down 3, you'll see them at the bottom, and it's going to go up and down through those notes as it goes along. And if I added a 4th note to that, it'll just cycle through that as well. Now, arpeggiators may be something for a whole extra video, but this is where you'll access them. And most synthesizers you'll find will have some kind of arpeggiator built in. So this is back to our original menu here. Just to demonstrate what I was saying about changing the parameters, we're going to choose a pad, and we're going to make it a little more immediate. So let's see what we've got here. That's quite an interesting sounding setting there, but it comes in quite slowly. I might want to take that attack time for the feel of my project and really have it come in quite slowly and release even slower. That's going to be quite an extreme effect. So let's have a listen. And I may need to speak over that incredibly long release time. So what I'm going to do now is show you the opposite. We're going to have a much shorter attack time and a much shorter release, which will give us quite a lot of control. And so that's a fairly basic overview of some of the controls you might find in all synthesizers. I know we didn't go through it in much detail or particularly eloquently, but it does give you a bit of an overview. Just to demonstrate, we might have a quick look at some other synthesizers to see how they share sections, even though they look quite different. If we have a look at, I believe it's the Cuneifornium by Plugin Alliance. This one's great. It's one of my favorites, and I'm still learning new things about it. It's quite crazy, quite organic and strange sounding, but you'll see here it has one of its oscillators that create the sounds here. There are definitely some extra controls and things to dive into here. Our second oscillator is found there. So our attack, decay, sustain, and release over in this section here, it's just got a ton of different crazy things. But up the top, we have our effects section, and you can see this has got a reverb, a delay, and a bunch of other modules in there too. And if we have a look here, it also has an arpeggiator with a lot of the same parameters, despite the different interface. Looking at UAD's Polymax synth, in this one here, we have, again, an oscillator 1, an oscillator 2, various mix controls. The noise is here. We'll find an arpeggiator in this section down there. And again, you've got your attack, decay, sustain, release. So you can see, again, a lot of crossover, including the filter section as well. So yeah, hopefully those basic controls will help you feel a little less lost when you open up a synth. Apologies if it's a little more basic for people that know synthesizers quite well, but I do feel like this can come in handy for anyone that hasn't looked at one before and wants to start using them in their projects, or as we said, just altering presets that you quite like the sound of, but they're not quite there. So hopefully that was somewhat helpful. I find having a working knowledge of the basics has come in handy for me many times, so hopefully it provides some kind of value for you as well. So thanks for watching to the end. If you got some use out of it, please give us a like and a subscribe, and it helps me continue to grow the channel. For more information about me or any of my work, I'm at witchingowlaudio.com. And if you've got any ideas for future videos as well, yeah, just drop us a line in comments or via email, and I look forward to chatting more. So thanks again.